And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with Tom Vasel.
Hey folks, today we're taking a look at Meduris. This is a new game from Stefan Dura and Ralph Zerlinde, but what got me really excited about this was the company that made it, HABA. See, HABA is known for making children's games, but last year, in 2015, they started a new family games line, and wow, Spookies was a really good game, and Karuba was nominated for the Spiel des Jahres, and Adventureland is amazing, and it's still in my collection. So I was like, oh yeah, another family game. And this one here had the strategy dial turned way up. So let's take a look at this game and see how it plays. At the beginning of the game, each player is going to put some workers out on the board. So they're going to be in these different spots here. Players are going to get a bunch of houses in their colors, depending on the number of players. They're also going to get 2 temples of their color. They have a shield. The only thing you're going to keep hidden behind your shield are the various resources: wood, wool, stone, and gold. And I should mention here that the gold pieces have a shiny tint to them, which is pretty cool. The first thing a player will do on their turn is roll the die here. Now, depending on what they roll, if they roll gold, which, see, it's still shiny, green, white, or gray, each person who has a worker at that location is going to get 1 resource for each worker there. If they roll the +1, everyone gets a resource of their choice. If they roll the -1, everyone loses a resource of their choice. Then the person whose turn it is has an action that they can take. One of their actions is they can take any worker from any spot and put them at the top of a stack of another spot. And then each worker at that spot is going to get resources. So the top person is going to get 3, the middle person would get 2, and the bottom person would get 1 resource. So here, blue is going to get 5 stone, but maybe they don't want stone, they might move over here. And so you're going to be moving around, and that would be your whole action. But other players might get resources on your turn. Another thing you do is you could build a house on an area on the board. When you build a house, you look at the cost. You can build it anywhere you want. So let's say I built a house here. This would cost me 1 stone and 1 wood. And when I place it, because it's part of this group of houses, I would get this rune. If this rune was in front of somebody else, I would take it from them. So one person can have the rune in front of them at any time. Now, you can build a house anywhere you want, but if you build a house next to another house or group of houses, it then becomes a village. And so this hut, I'm calling them houses, but I guess they're technically huts. As I put these out, when you put it out and you're going to form the village or a settlement, each successive house is going to cost more. So if I put this one here, I wouldn't pay 1 wool and 1 gold, I would pay 2 wool and 2 gold. And if a third one was put out, then that would cost 3 wood and 3 gold. In fact, if someone was joining these 2 together, that would cost 4 and 4. So the bigger the settlement is, the more expensive it gets. Temples can also be placed out in an empty spot, but a temple only ever costs 1 and 1. A temple's price never goes up. And a temple is not part of a settlement. In fact, the temple here would separate these into 2 settlements pretty much permanently. Now, whenever something is built, the druid is going to move. Now, the druid starts down here in the bottom, and so the first 3 times he moves, he's here. But after that, he's going to move clockwise around the board to the next settlement, whether it's a single house or not. When he gets to a settlement, he will travel to each house in that settlement. And each house in that settlement has to decide whether to make an offering or not. If they don't make an offering, they're going to lose 1 point. That's why you start with 5. There's 2 things at each house. If you give up one of them, you will get 1 point. If you give up both of them, you will get points equal to however big the settlement is. So if the settlement's a big one, like let's say it's 4, and you give up both resources, you will get 4 points. So you could get multiple points if you have multiple houses in a settlement. Now you'll notice that there's some of these tiles that have been placed on the board randomly. When you build on top of them, you will get whatever the bonus is. So this one here is just simply 2 points. This one here means you don't have to pay the resources there. That set of houses for free. And if you go on top of this one, you'll leave it there, and when the druid comes by, you can give this to him, and this counts as if you made an offering of both elements. And so this is going to continue. The druid's going to be moving every time a house or temple is built. When the druid crosses the Rune River, Rune River. Anyhow, whenever he crosses there, each player who has a rune is going to get 1 point for each rune that they have. And you're going to keep going on until one person has built all their stuff. Each person gets one final turn, and then you will do final scoring. Temples will score at the end of the... Oh, I'm sorry, the Druid then moves around the board one last time. He moves completely around the board. It stops at every single place, and you will get or lose points there. And then each temple is going to score points for all the houses that are adjacent to it. So, for example, this red temple here would get 3 plus 3, 6 points. And then runes will score one final time. Although they score, the first one is 1 point, the second one you have is worth 2 points. So if I have 4 runes, I'm going to score 10 more points at the end of the game. Most points, winner of the game. Now this game has a very abstract feel to it. I mean, you're placing things out there, moving a druid and blah, 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 and that's fine. We're going to look at the basic functions of the game. Now, the game does the components are beautiful, wooden pieces, the shields, the board looks great. The board is two-sided. There's a 2 to 3-player side, a 4-player side. The side I was showing you was 2 to 3-player, even though I was showing you 4-player pieces, but whatever. The one thing that some people I found don't like, it is what it is, they do it to save cost, is that there are more purple and blue pieces than the other 2 colors. So if you want to play 2 players, you're playing purple and blue. So they just realize that going in. For whatever reason, there's not as many of the other pieces, but not a big deal. Gameplay itself is very intriguing. You're rolling the die first, and you're getting resources. It almost feels like a Settlers of Catan thing. I mean, you have 2, maybe 3 workers if you're playing with 2 players. But let's say you're playing 3 or 4. You have 2 workers throughout there. So if you have them in the same spot, if that die hits your spot, boom, that's 2 resources. And if it doesn't, but if you have them in different places, then you have a spot to get. You have a 50% chance. Well, not a 50. Yeah, but you have a 50% chance of getting what you want. One of your 2 colors, or the pick one of your choice option. But there is a little bit of randomness, but despite that die being some randomness, it doesn't feel random. The decisions that you have to make then are pretty simple. Are you going to build a house, or are you going to take resources? You move to the top of a stack, which is kind of a neat mechanism. The stacks can never go higher than 3. And so sometimes the place you want to go, you can't because it's full. So you might move somewhere else. And when you move somewhere else, boom, you're going to score. And every time you move, if I did my math correctly, you should always get 6 resources of that type. Well, assuming you move to the 3rd level of something, because you'll go there, it will score. If someone moves out, you're now in the 2nd position, and it will score again. But it might not, because someone might move out of the one underneath that, and then you only will score one more time when someone else comes there. But either way, you're guaranteed some resources. And the resources in this game are limited. You're not going to get all the resources you want because they will run out. People will start hoarding them. At the beginning of the game, people are throwing out settlements to get those bonus chips, which, by the way, aren't that big of a deal, but I think they just kind of are there to help you figure out where to start. But as time goes by, a double settlement, suddenly, oh, wow, that costs 2 and 2. Triple settlement, 3 and 3. Pretty... I haven't seen a settlement go over 5 yet, because it's just, you need 6 of 2 different resources. That's a lot of resources. You can always use 3 of another resource as a wild, but that's crazy expensive. And once that druid gets out, he starts looking around the board, and you want to make sure you have the resources to pay him. So you have to kind of determine, when do I pay him 1 resource? Well, if there's 1 house in the settlement, that's obviously, you only ever pay him 1. Why would you pay 2 to get 1 point? But after that, maybe I should let that 1 settlement lose a point and save my resources for when he hits that bigger settlement. Joining a settlement, you obviously want to join other players sometimes, but if he has 3 houses or huts in a settlement, why would I want to put a 4th one there? Sure, I'll score 4 points, but I might be giving him 12. And so players are getting resources, hogging them, but the more you hog them, the fewer houses you put out. If you put a whole bunch of houses all over the board, you'll get more runes, which is more points every time he passes Rune River. And also at the end of the game, that can be worth a lot of points. But it's not the best strategy. You need to be part of these things and save resources too. So it's kind of a fascinating game. It's very thinky, actually, because while your options are pretty simple, do I move? Or do I get some resources, or am I building something? Although the rulebook is funny. In fact, I actually have to say I'm not a big fan of how this rulebook was laid out, because they tell you what to do here, and these are your options, and then go over here, and then it folds out some more. So if I want to look at this, that's a big long page. It's almost like a spreadsheet, but the game itself is not that complex. I can teach this game pretty easily. but the thought processes behind it are pretty deep. This is definitely the most strategic of the games HABA has put out so far. I don't think it's as fun, perhaps, as the other ones, because you're sitting there kind of just thinking, but it is a solid, good game, and I think a lot of people are going to like it. If you're looking for a slightly heavier, more strategic game from HABA with really beautiful pieces, then this one's going to be right up your alley. That's Meduris. Dice Tower Judgment, approved!
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews, as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com. You can also find other great shows at Dicetowernetwork.com. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower. The Dice Tower is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can find great games for great prices. Cool stuff in stock. Check them out at CoolStuffInc.com.
Zamknij drzwi!
Gdzie? Gdzie?